All right, folks, it's Bass Action, back in action. On this video, what we're going to do is look at how to write the equation for a parabola, either based on a graph or based on the characteristics that are given. So the first thing that I want you to notice that we're going to fill out in this top box here is how we can think about these standard forms, because it's not going to actually make a huge difference whether or not it's a horizontal opening or vertical. So remember, our horizontal openings will be these left-right parabolas, and our vertical openings will be what we've been calling our up-down parabolas, okay? Now, in both forms of the equation, they both will have this x minus h and a y minus k. They both have this. That's going to be our vertex, okay? So that's not going to make any difference on which form you have. And what I like to do is I like to set it up with that x minus h and y minus k, because then I can keep the x coordinate on the left and the y coordinate on the right. Then from there, I just think about the fact that the exponent and the coefficient have to be on opposite sides. And of course, the exponent is going to be on the side of the axis that it's going to cross twice. So if it's a left-right or this horizontal opening parabola, I know it's going to cross or have the potential to cross the y-axis twice. So I'm going to put my exponent on that side, which means the 4p goes on the other side. For our up-down, it's going to cross or have the potential to cross the y-axis twice, which means the 4p goes on the other side. So as long as you generally just follow that setup, you're going to be fine. So let's take a look at one. This is actually going to go really fast. So when I look at this parabola, actually, I do want to call your attention again to the fact that there's this little gap here. Remember, that gap doesn't actually exist. It's just there because the computer program can't quite fill that in. So we'll go ahead and fill that in right away. Okay, now, this is a left-right parabola. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that x minus h. Just let's set up our basic thing. Our x minus h and our y minus k. I can see that it's going to cross the y-axis twice. So I'm going to put my exponent here, and I'm going to put my 4p here. From here, I'm just going to fill in the parts that I know. So I'm going to look at my graph. I'm going to see that my vertex is at 1, negative 3. So I'll be able to fill that in for the hk. And then I can see that the distance from this vertex to the directrix is a negative 8. And I do want to remind myself that it's a negative 8 because it is opening in the negative direction. So when I go to write this equation, I'm going to take that negative 8 times the p, and I'll write a negative 32. Then I'm going to write my x minus 1, and a y minus my negative 3 is going to be a plus 3. And I'm going to put my exponent on that side. That's it. That's all we've got to do to write that equation. So now let's take a look down below. I'm going to give you one based on characteristics where we need to rough out a little bit of a graph for ourselves. So on this one, I'm going to tell you that the vertex is going to be at negative 1, 4, and I'm going to tell you about the focus. So we're going to give ourselves just a quick little XY axis here. Doesn't have to be perfectly to scale, just needs to be in the right quadrants. So the vertex is going to be at a negative 1, 4, and I like to go ahead and just label that and give yourself a V for your vertex there. And then the focus is going to be at a negative 1, 0, and that's my focus. And this is where it's important to remember the definition. I'm actually going to label that too. It's important to remember the definition of our focus, and that the focus needs to be inside the parabola, which means our parabola needs to be this downward turning parabola. So if I look at the distance between this vertex and the focus, I can see that the distance between them will be my p-value. It's opening down, so I'm going to make it a negative 4. And then I can go ahead and I can set up my equation. So remember, we're going to have x minus the vertex, so x minus the negative 1, so x plus 1. And it's crossing the x-axis twice, so I'm going to square that term. Then I'm going to have my y minus the y-coordinate, and then the coefficient on the opposite side should be the 4p, so I'm just going to fill in a 4 times a negative 4, or a negative 16. And we're all done with writing equations of parabolas.